Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
Time now for Dolphins Central. Here's Ryan Yousefi and Thomas Galicia.
Welcome to the newest episode of Dolphins Central Radio here on the Pro Football Central Podcast Network. With me, as always, is my new co-host, Ryan Yousefi.
What's going on, guys? Good to see you tonight.
Great to have you back. Of course, I am Thomas Galicia, Miami Dolphins feature columnist from BleacherReport.com. Later on the show today, we have an exclusive interview with Mike Clay of FootballFocus.com. Now, Ryan, we're going to give you a little test. This interview's all on you.
Sounds good. I got it.
You ready?
I am ready.
Well, we're not going to get there yet. First off, let's look at some Dolphins news. And this week, the Dolphins are in the news a little bit due to the fact that neither Paul Soliai, Rashad Jones, or Randy Stocks have new contracts. Now, Ryan, why do you think that is the case?
Well, I mean, I think that they've created some salary cap situations for this year. They still have the money left. I think they're waiting on Leach. Still, that's been going on forever. But I think right now, Ireland just kind of wants to sit tight and find out what's going on with this season and probably wait to see how they perform.
Yeah, that seems like it would be the case. And when you look at Rashad Jones, Ireland and the Dolphins have 2 years to really work with him to see what they can get out of him. Not only do they have him under contract for this year, but next year he's eligible for the franchise tag. And unless he really performs well above expectations, I don't see any reason why he's going to get anything other than the franchise tag next year.
But when it comes to Soliai and Starks, you have proven players that you don't really need to see what you get out of them this season. But if you have them under contract and you have all these new players, you kind of want to see where the team goes. And then it decided towards the end of the year, what is your first priority? You've got some new players at cornerback, and you've got so many pieces up in the air that, next season a lot of these guys' numbers go up, and I think that they want to kind of feel out what they have and not just start throwing around money. Now, the one thing that I'm worried about is that, whenever you have holdovers from a season before that are running on their last year contract, and then you bring in a bunch of guys that just got bags of money, that can cause problems when losses start mounting up. So, everybody's happy when they're winning. Everybody's happy when they're playing well. But sometimes things happen in the locker room when things aren't going well. So hopefully they don't run into that kind of thing. Hopefully all these guys are, they seem to be good teammates. And, especially Starks, it sounds like he just kind of wants to come out and play. He's not crying a lot, like some of those receivers will at this time of year when they don't have a new contract. He kind of wants to get in there. He proved his point when he skipped that, the first kind of practices there. But, as far as these contracts go, I think they're all well paid, except for Jones, I guess. He's still waiting for his contract, but, you can't hit the bank on 1 year. I think he's got something to prove still. So, we'll see how the year unfolds and who they end up paying, who's more important.
Yeah, definitely true. And also another thing to notice with Starks and Soliai is the fact that both of them are impending free agents at the end of the year, and the Dolphins only will keep one. They only have to keep one. They only need to keep one. Defensive line has plenty of depth as it is, and you're going to see Jared Odrick getting more playing time in the defensive interior. So with that in mind, I think what you'll see is the two of them will rotate playing next to Odrick throughout the season, and whoever works better in that situation will probably be the player that winds up coming back next year. Or you could even see a situation where the Dolphins just let the both of them come back, use the depth that they already have on the defensive line, and maybe use the draft to add another player.
Right. Yeah, they have a lot of options. That's the one part of this team that hasn't been a problem for a while. It's been the line. They've invested so much money, and they've actually, they've come across some players that they've homegrown themselves that, they have options. Unlike, places like cornerback where they had to, flip the entire roster almost since the middle of last season. And, they're kind of, they had to pay Grimes big. I think that he's going to be a good signing, but, they don't have as many options other places as they do on the line, so that's promising.
Yeah, now, as for Rashad Jones, his position, one with nowhere near the depth. But at the same time, not only do the Dolphins have this year with Jones, but they also have him for next year at the very least under a franchise tag deal. Do you possibly see the Dolphins franchising Jones next season?
If he improves upon what he did last year, then he's going to be one of the top guys out there at his position, and I think that it's a definite option. It seems as though they're kind of taking a page out of the Marlins playbook when it comes to keeping a guy who's under control cheap as long as you can and paying him at the last minute, Sometimes that gets tricky, but thankfully there is a franchise tag so they can use that on the guy. And I think that, Ireland, he's still only here for a year. He put all his chips, he went all in this year. So we're going to have to, I think he kind of wants to see what happens this year. He's not too worried about years later. The salary cap, he set himself up so that they're not going to be in a bad position if he sticks around. But I think that everything was focused on this year, as you can see, moving up in the draft, doing something that they usually don't do, going out and overpaying players in free agency that they wanted, they don't have a 3-year plan where they can develop guys. They went out and they got guys that have proven it, and they plugged them right into holes where they felt that they weren't elite. And, there's something to be said for that win now mentality and go out and, worry about this year first. But in the back of their minds, they should think about locking up guys like him because it's just a wave that happens in another year and another year, so you have to look to the future as well, which, in certain situations when a GM only has a 1-year contract could be a problem. You're seeing that with the Jets this year. They have Sanchez and they have Gino, so you don't know if they wouldn't just plug in the young kid right away because the guy's job's on the line. So when a guy's job is on the line, he's thinking about right now. He's not thinking about a couple of years. So I think as the games unfold, things will come to fruition. So we'll just have to see. It's going to be a real exciting season to see how things unfold and which it's a fork in the road. This franchise Tannehill can look great or he can regress like Henny did, and we can be going one way or the other.
Don't even say that.
There's a whole thing. That's why I don't like the wins and losses deal at the beginning of the season because you never know what's going to happen. There's worst case scenarios. That's why Matt Moore's here. He's called the emergency break glass. You got to be ready for stuff, and you never know how it's going to go. So, he's there, so we don't have to start deviling and win 2 games. So there's always the emergency situation. So we'll see how it pans out. I think they've got everybody under contract for this season pretty much. So I think that's what they're worried about at this moment in time.
Yes, they do. And by the way, Rashad Jones this season only making $1.3 million. So they definitely have a bargain with him, which is why I could see why they're not exactly in a rush to get a contract with him. Now, as for Soliai and Starks, based off of right now, obviously things can change during the season, but based off of right now, which one of the two would you recommend the Dolphins keep?
I would go with Starks. I'm a big fan of Starks. I think he's more athletic, even though Soliai, he's in the past been a force. And I think he doesn't get as much credit for taking on the double teams, and his numbers are never going to look as big as other guys. But I'm a fan of Starks. I think Soliai, he had the 2-year contract last season. He's just not a guy that you're going to see make a lot of plays. He kind of just takes on the double teams, and I think it's going to come down to if both are even play-wise, who's younger, who's got more upside, and who cheaper, and I think a lot of it, Deion Jordan is going to affect a lot of this as well, and Audric as well. You never know what can happen. So I'm a big fan of Starks. I think he's a quality player that gets to the ball, makes things happen.
Well, as for who's younger, actually, Soliai's younger by two and a half weeks or something like that, because Soliai's birthday is on December 30th, 1983. Starks is on December 14th. So it's really a wash, and I'm in agreement with you that I'd go with Starks. He's been a lot more versatile. He's actually proven more than Soliai has. Soliai has had his ups and downs. He's been great the last couple of years, but with Starks, it seems just a little bit more settled down the middle. So now on to the offense, and your first solo interview as a co-host on Dolphins Central Radio. Here is, go take it away, Ryan. Introduce your guest.
All right, coming up, we're going to have Mike Clay from Pro Football Fantasy and NBC. He's going to be talking a little Dolphins fantasy for us. We actually have some players this season that you can target for your fantasy team, not just because you like to look at their names at the bottom of the roster, but actually because you can plug them in Sunday morning. So that would be exciting to hear if he agrees with us on a few of those guys. And I want to talk to him a little bit about Lamar Miller and see, where he ranks up there with the running backs. You've seen all the videos there he's posted on Twitter with working out with Frank Gore. This guy's getting at it. So he's not just coming into the season, thinking that something's being handed to him. I think he's ready to make a difference on the field, and definitely someone to look for in fantasy. So we're going to talk to Mike Clay about that.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
All right, here at Dolphins Central, we're talking to Mike Clay from NBC, Pro Football Focus Fantasy, NBC World. How you doing today, Mike?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's looking forward to getting back to some football. It's kind of dead time right now in the off season, but the action will be picking up pretty soon here.
Yeah, I'm starting to get all those alerts on my phone. The fantasy football's coming. It's just as exciting now. It builds every year, and we're almost back into that time. Starting to get the magazines out, but it's a little too early for that. I like to wait until after at least the training camps to really get into it. But I'm sure your Twitter and everything's starting to get a little busier, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's certainly getting a lot of questions. I work in fantasy as well, so a lot of fantasy football questions right now with drafts coming up, that kind of stuff, and certainly a lot of people, just with basketball, hockey winding down, a lot of people, starting to get in that football mode.
Yeah, I'm a Miami Heat fan. I root for the Miami New Times, and I'm just trying to switch over myself after that. So I feel you. It's a quick switch, but the Dolphins training camp's coming up on July 20th, so we're getting ready for that. Fantasy-wise, as a Dolphins fan, this is a Dolphins market. We're not too used to having Dolphins on our team. This year, who would you say would be the one Dolphin that would be the most, this year, I guess, explosive in fantasy, if you could say?
I think that, the guy that's going to come off the board first in fantasy is certainly going to be Lamar Miller. Of course, there's a major running back bias in fantasy football. The running backs come off the board early. So Miller, looks like he's going to be the feature back there. He doesn't have much competition for the job, and it's an improving offense, an offense that ran a lot last year, especially, inside the 5-yard line, had a lot of rushing touchdowns. So, Daniel Thomas, we've seen that he's not really up to, he's not a starting caliber running back, and certainly their rookie back, Mike Gillislee, he's, a 6th-round pick. We don't really know what to expect from him quite yet. So Lamar Miller looking like he doesn't have a ton of competition there, should be the feature back, and, has a chance to, score 6-8 touchdowns, carry the ball, 250 times, catch maybe 30, 40 footballs. So a chance for him to be a major breakout player this season.
Yeah, I'll do my homework on him a little bit. For PPR leagues, it looks like I was checking back on his stats, just kind of refreshing my memory. In 2010, his whole career really, he only had 28 catches, 17, 2011, 11, and 2010. So PPR leagues might want to, maybe push him a little farther down the draft, you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Lamar Miller.
Oh, Miller.
He's not much of a pass catching back.
Well, I think he'll be out there. I mean, the big concern really is pass protection. As long as he can block for Tannehill, he'll be out there, on third down and catching the passes. Because again, there's not a major threat there in the backfield. You can have Thomas play a little bit. Certainly Marcus Bigpen they like, who he dabbled at wide receiver and running back. Maybe he gets some snaps in the backfield as well on passing downs. But I really think they're looking for Miller to come out and take over, that role as a 3-down back. And I certainly think that, I don't think he could be top 5 by any means in receptions at the position. Maybe not top 10, but he'll do it enough that he's up there with the feature backs in the league about where he belongs. Right,
yeah, it might be like a good value for where he's at. One of those guys that next season you might not be able to get as high as you do this year, I guess. What about, I think Tannehill? Yeah, this year Tannehill, everybody's predicting that he can break out. I guess, most people at least, with all his new weapons. Is he the kind of quarterback in a one-quarterback league that could basically, lead your team, or is he still going to be on the lower tier where he's a guy you want to get in a later round that you might, in case of emergency or a bye week?
I like him. I mean, I think that he's a good player, and I think that he's really going to take the next step this year. He had arguably the worst crew around him in terms of offensive skill position players last year, and they upgraded quite a bit this year with Mike Wallace and certainly Dustin Keller as well. Running back, we'll see there how good Lamar Miller is. Bush, of course, is gone. Brandon Gibson, another guy they injected in this offense. I personally prefer Devon Best. I thought they made a mistake there, but he's only their number 3 wide receiver. Not a major upgrade, downgrade, whichever way you want to look at it. But Tannehill, the offense is better around him, and I think he does have a chance to break out this season. And I think he's a strong number 2. Frankly, in fantasy, I usually don't draft a backup quarterback. I don't think it's really necessary all the time, especially considering how deep the crew of number 2 ranked quarterbacks is this year. But I think if I was going after one, I wanted to take a shot on somebody, and Tannehill was still there, in the later rounds, I would take a shot because I think that he is a high ceiling.
Yeah, especially with Mike Wallace, he touched on earlier. How far up in the draft is Mike Wallace going this year? Is he about where he was when he was at Pittsburgh, or is it something that he's kind of moved backwards because they're not sure about where he's going to be in this offense since everything's pretty much up in the air?
Right, certainly some question marks, and we know with Wallace he's a bit of a volatile player. You'll have your big games where he catches a long touchdown, other games where he's quieter. That's just the kind of player he is. He's in that, Deshaun Jackson category of a lot of big plays, a lot of work downfield. So, I do like him. I think he's a strong number 2 fantasy wide receiver. I have him right around 14. So, I don't think it's a stretch to expect him to catch 70 balls, go over 1,000 yards, catch 7 touchdowns this year. I don't think that's a crazy projection, assuming that Brian Tannehill takes that next step. And something really interesting about this offense, I think most don't realize, is that they were a run, more of a run-first team in their first year under Joe Philbin last year, but they actually had the most run-heavy ratio in terms of rushing touchdowns to passing touchdowns. Over half of their touchdowns were of the rushing variety, and that's something that is going to fix itself this year. We saw it start to fix itself in the second half last year, and we'll see more of that regression this year. So that's going to mean good news for the passing game, good news for a guy like Mike Wallace and for Ryan Tannehill. There's going to be more passing touchdowns this year as opposed to, the rushing variety from last year.
Yeah, last year, I think the wide receivers had 1 total touchdown, and when they got in the red zone, I think that's where your numbers are most important in fantasy, of course, and I think Keller possibly could benefit from that. What do you think about that? When they get in the red zone, maybe he's a target that they'll be looking for more often?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think that he's going to be one of those top weapons in the red zone. Who else are they going to go to? Gibson and Wallace stand at 6 foot. You have Hartline who's 6'2", but he's never been a guy that scores many touchdowns. We saw that last year when he only scored 1, which, certainly should have scored 4 or 5, maybe 6 of them, considering the volume of targets he saw. But, who else is going to be the target down there? You go with the second tight end, Deion Sims, he's a big guy. He is 3 inches on Keller, and he could be a guy they target in the red zone. But Keller probably going to be I would imagine their primary, Tannehill's primary go-to target once they're down there inside the 10 or so yard line.
Yeah, I mean, I think possibly I could see Tannehill using his athleticism a little bit more as well as he gets more comfortable and they have more weapons that are running down the field. So I think that might bring his stock up, when they get in the red zone. But is there a sleeper past Lamar Miller for the Dolphins offense this year, whether it be Gibson, or is there anyone off the radar that you might want to take a flyer on, later in the draft?
Well, I would say Tannehill is more of a sleeper than Miller. I think the jury's kind of out on Miller. I think people are going after him already.
Okay.
People shot at him in that second or third round. So I would say if you're really digging deep, it's probably, and I almost hate to say this because he's kind of received some hype recently, but Armand Binns is probably the deepest sleeper on this team right now. It looks like he's the favorite for the number 4 job. They say he's pushing Gibson for the 3 job. They like him a lot. I alluded to their size earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Binns stands at 3. He's one of the heavier wide receivers on the roster. So, a chance for him to do some work, out there. Probably, the problem probably is with him is going to be that Gibson is going to play the slot, and Binns is more of a bigger guy. You would imagine him on the outside, but that's where Wallace and Hartline are going to be. So, but again, if he comes out, he's impressive and he's better than Gibson, they're going to find a way to get him on the field. So that's certainly if you're in a very deep league, that's a guy to look at as a sleeper.
Yeah, I've been surprised how much they're getting behind this Binns guy. I guess the local guys are already talking about him, as you said, supplanting Gibson, but they were talking about the bonus that Gibson's got, and it's a little early. Last year, we did probably every team deals with this every year, but last year was Legadou Nene, and this year it's Binns. But I think he can jump Rashard Matthews on the roster at the very least. And they're saying in training camp that he's getting a lot of red zone targets, kind of on those slants deep in the red zone. So that sounds like a good sleeper if you're in a real deep league, someone to stash away, but maybe someone just to look for on the waiver wire, as the season goes. But sounds great. It sounds like we actually have some Dolphins this season that we can target in the draft rather than other seasons where it was just because I was your team. So that's good to hear. I think that goes to the overall excitement about the team, a little bit different from years past. So appreciate your input on that. I think that's about it for the fantasy. Appreciate you coming on with us.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Mike Clay. His Twitter handle is Mike Clay NFL from Pro Football Focus Fantasy and NBC Roto World. All right, that was Mike Clay NFL on Twitter for all you people on Twitter, from Pro Football Focus Fantasy and NBC Roto World. A lot of good information there on the Dolphins you might want to target in your drafts because that time of year is coming back around. So get all your PayPal money together because it's almost that time again. And some good information, like I said. We're back here with Thomas on Dolphins Central. How you doing, Thomas?
Pretty good.
All right.
Nice job.
Thank you. I got thrown in the fire there a little bit. My first interview here and Mike was real good information.
Well, that's how he hates you. My first was Omar Kelly. So.
Oh, your first interview was Omar Kelly?
Yes, it was.
Well, you survived. That's a good thing.
Yes.
We'll bypass the obvious jokes here, and we'll move on. So
any joke that has been made already has been. So. Yeah,
they've been made. But so we got some good information there on Dolphins fantasy players. Who are you looking at this year in fantasy? Do you feel comfortable passing on the first couple quarterbacks and going after Tannehill if he's there?
Well, it really depends on what my pick is. Obviously, if I have the chance to get Breeze or Rodgers, I'm going to go and grab them. But if I lose out on those two, I wouldn't mind, waiting a couple of rounds and then grabbing Tannehill later on. I also wouldn't mind Tannehill as my second quarterback, if anything.
Right.
Fantasy-wise, I would definitely pick Breeze or Rodgers first. As for Dolphins, I would target. I know Mike Wallace is going to go higher than just about than he should, because, like I've been saying, it's going to take a while for Wallace and Tannehill to develop a chemistry together. So Wallace's numbers are not this season are not going to be what he has produced in the last few years with Pittsburgh. Just the adjustment period. But if I could grab Hartline much later on, or even grab Dustin Keller later on, I think I'd be pretty solid with the second and third wide receivers on my team. And as for Lamar Miller, he's a solid running back to get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was asking him if he thought Lamar Miller was a sleeper, and he brought up a good point. This time of year, anybody that's, with all the committees, anybody that seems to be the main running back is not a sleeper. It's someone you want to take early. He thinks Tannehill is more of a sleeper, which, I agree with him. I personally, if you're playing fantasy football, you better be a Dolphins fan if you're going to put all your stock in Tannehill, because it's a boom or bust type thing. It just depends how the offense goes and a lot of new guys. But if you're looking for someone on the second tier there, someone if you want to wait in your draft, stock up on running backs, I think Tannehill would be, you could do worse, especially guys in our division. You could do a lot worse.
I have a feeling not a single New York Jets quarterback will be picked in any fantasy draft.
Right. Yeah, EJ Manuel.
Fumble start count as points.
Yeah, EJ Manuel is not. It's not going to be this season for him. I'm an FSU alum, and I'm a fan of his, but I don't see him making a splash in fantasy this year. Although he could surprise people, but there's nobody on the Jets that's doing anything for you. So and then you got Brady over there. But if you're looking for a sleeper, like you said, Tannehill could be that guy.
Well, Brady, I have my own questions about, just simply because of the whole who's he going to throw it to part. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, and I know that eventually he's going to find his groove. This offense is going to find its groove. Gronkowski is going to get healthy eventually, and he'll be available to Brady, and Brady's production will be back up. But at the start, I do think Brady's going to struggle just a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned Keller, and so did he. I asked him about Keller. He could be someone that could definitely solve those red zone problems they've been having. I mean, being a Dolphins fan, he popped up all the time when it seemed like when they're getting on our side of the 50. He's just a guy, in a lot of offenses that's going to be open. Philbin coming from Green Bay, he uses that tight end a lot. So he's definitely someone that, again, if you're going to wait on a position, you could do worse than what the Dolphins have as your sleeper, especially with people not really knowing what you're going to have there. That's always a place where you can score. So something to look forward to. Actually rooting for the Dolphins and fantasy, I don't know if I could take it. I don't know if that I've experienced that too many times where I'm rooting for them to score for two reasons. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, definitely. But I can tell you this, when it comes to when you need a defense, one strategy that I thought of is just pick the defense that's playing the Jets. And we do have the Dolphins playing the Jets twice this year. So
there you go.
So,
yep.
And one of them is the final game of the season, so who knows? You might actually be counting on the Dolphins defense as your in your championship week, if you make it that far.
I'm with a lot of the strategy where you juggle defenses definitely to who you're playing a lot. Not worth going up and taking, say, the Steelers or the Ravens and just playing them every week because you never know when they're going to be facing the Saints or something, or the Broncos this year. But the Dolphins, they can be plugged in against the Jets and the Bills, and we'll see how the Patriots do. We'll see. That's an interesting thing. There's a lot of things Dolphins-wise that are up in the air this season, so it'd be interesting to look forward to see how it all plays out.
All divisions up in the air, and really, the only team I really feel safe counting out of this division, and we're going to get some hate mail from this because you know how Jets fans are the Jets.
Yeah.
And that's
sure.
it.
I mean, the Jets, you can count them out this season as far as contending, but you got to be careful for that's that game where it's their Super Bowl. You know, they always get up, an old cliche. So, yeah, hey, the Bills, you know, it seems like every time we need a win against the Bills and we're going somewhere, they clip us in Buffalo. So when it comes to individual games against the Dolphins, that's one thing, and contending is a whole nother.
And those are the final two games of the season, by the way.
Oh, that's true.
23rd at Buffalo, the 29th against the Jets here in Miami.
Yep, and the Dolphins have been that team. You've seen it before, where they have, for some reason, at the end of the season, decided to start playing well and messing up their draft position and beating a team like the Patriots, whether they're trying as hard as they can or not. But, you know, that's something to watch. You know, these teams, they know each other so well, even though now they're, you know, it seems like the whole division has changed. You know, it seems like last year is nothing like the year before and the year before. It's just the team, Dolphins themselves are so different. But it's going to be real interesting to see. And fantasy-wise, I've never been more excited about a season. Seems like every year it grows, more people are playing. So it was good to get Mike Clay's input on the Dolphins, because I usually just have a rule where I don't pick a Dolphin. I just pass them by. They're waiver wire fodder, you know, but this season you can actually think about picking them over people, especially Lamar Miller, if you ask me. I think that he's someone that you can win a league with if you get him at a good value, and he's someone you can plug in behind your top picks. So you guys, I just gave you, you know, now I put that out there so everyone's going to hear what I'm going to do. So hopefully I can get in a league where no one hears the show.
Yeah, we both did. We both did. I'll convince everyone that that's not our voices. That's someone else. I don't know who that guy is.
Yep.
But anyways, so once again, our thanks to Mike Clay for joining us. Ryan, thank you again for another great show.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, your show too. And we will see all of you guys next week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Dolphins Central. If you have a question, send it to our Twitter and we will answer the question. Ryan, promote your Twitter.
My Twitter is RizWrites, 2 Z's. I made it shorter for you guys, so more if you could follow me. So follow me on there. I'm there all day, guys. Jeez, give me something to talk about.
Nice. And my Twitter at Thomas Galicia, spelled Galicia. We will see you all next week. Same Fin Time, Same Fin Podcast Network. Here.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.